All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 364 of the Health Detective Podcast. We are moving right along here, and what's been so much fun about the show as we've progressed is we get to meet different needs at different times. And so that's why we brought this particular guest on today. As you guys have probably seen in the last 50 to 100 episodes, if you've been a regular listener for a while, you've noticed we brought on more business content, stuff to help you guys with mindset. And this is going to be one specifically around the financial side. So I'm very interested in this because I think what happens to so many health coaches and health practitioners is we get into this line of work totally because of our heart, right? And I don't mean our heart health, although that's a powerful thing too. I mean, our heart's in the right place. We want to go out and do good in the world, and we learn all this stuff. We have a library and bookcase filled with health books. We've taken tens of thousands of dollars of courses. Some of you have spent more on those courses than you did your dang college education at this point, right? And then you finally get to the point where you realize, oh, wait, I got to learn to manage this business side of things. No one's going to work with me if I don't know how to go out and attract, onboard, all that stuff with a client. And there's different little pieces that come up, right? There's the marketing side. There's the sales side. I love the idea of what happens once the money starts coming in. And you guys know I'm very transparent with you on this show. I am someone that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. And especially since I started business at a young age, like pretty much as soon as I was 18, I was doing stuff that was self-employed. I learned the hard way that a lot of your habits in your personal finances will quickly reflect in your business finances. The difference is, though, when you screw up your personal finances, you can get some debt. That's scary. You might have some payments you don't like. You screw up the business side, now the big guys are after you. So you really need to get this down and figure out a way to do it. So I will read our guest's bio and we will get right into this today. Krisstina Wise is a real estate mogul and investor, millionaire coach, best-selling author, speaker, and creator of several seven-figure businesses. And after hitting her freedom number, she dedicated herself to helping other entrepreneurs learn how to build a seven-figure business and a seven-figure personal net worth as a means to achieve financial freedom and retire early. Krisstina now teaches high-income entrepreneurs how to convert business profits into personal net worth and passive income without sacrificing their health, soul, and sanity. She is the host of the Wealthy Wealth. How do I pronounce that, Krisstina? Wealthy podcast. All right. Author of Falling for Money, a romance novel for your bank account, and owner of Wealthy, and the Wise Money Method for financial success and happiness. Krisstina, welcome to the Health Detective Podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Krisstina was a huge hit in our graduate group. So for those that are already in FDN, if you're training, once you're on the graduate side, you get all these different webinars and health trainings, business stuff. So she was a huge hit there back in 2023. And once I found out what the topic was, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to have her on. So normally I would start off this show regarding health issues, right, Krisstina? But we'll change that a little bit today. I would love to know how you got into this line of work, because I actually don't think it's that dissimilar from the health side. I would imagine this isn't something that you just did because you're bored. I mean, to hit these levels in life, you got to be exuding passion and purpose. So what made you get on this path?
Well, the name of my business is called Wealthy. And like you said, the second wealthy is WELLTHY. And this brand came out of the fact that I did everything well in business and I built really big business, and my business was continuing to grow and scale year after year. And I was all in. Like, I sacrificed my health and well-being and even family and everything to build this real business success and financial success. I mean, I always say I would have been the Gary V poster child. I did it all. And then in 2013, 2014, I had a really scary health crisis, and it took me down. And it just caused, going through that, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me then, like going through that when I lost my health, what was so fascinating to me was that I spent 10 years of grinding and hustling and sacrificing and all in. And it paid off from a business and finance standpoint. But then one day I was fine, and the next day I couldn't get out of bed, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. And 10 years. And within 6 months, my business had flatlined. And then I had to start putting money into my business to keep it going while I was trying to take care of my health concerns and figure out what the hell was going on because I was just deteriorating. And that was this big wake up call. The first wake up call was like, oh my gosh, business isn't everything. Like money in business isn't the only type of money, number one. And then number two, we can't sacrifice our health and well-being for the sake of this financial and business success. So that coming out of that experience, I just learned so much. And the third thing, which was so interesting, is that here I'd had all these national accolades. I mean, I was just like a star in my industry and a household name. And that's what I was famous for. But personally, over on the side, I was a real estate investor and been building this personal net worth. And the kind of the third thing that jumped out of this experience is that my business didn't save me when I needed it to. It was this personal net worth that enabled me to pay my bills while I was trying to recover. And it took me $250,000 to get my health back because I was
Wow.
so sick and trying to figure it out. So after that experience, I just coming out of that, I mean, true story, I don't tell this very often. I don't know why it just popped into my head, but right kind of in the deepest, darkest moments I was going through when I wasn't sure I was going to make it. And it wasn't just my health concern. I was just so full of remorse and grief because I just was dying. I hadn't lived yet, and I'd sacrificed time with my family. I'd sacrificed everything, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. And I just wanted another chance. And I had this conversation with the universe, and just said to the universe, like, if I get another chance, I promise I will teach these lessons. I will burn the boats, I'll burn everything I did and just go out and try to teach whoever will listen
Mhm.
the importance of understanding money and how money and health and wellness are all combined. So that's what brought me to have this conversation about money, and especially money and health and money and business, where we can be, I'm not in the health industry, but where health providers can say like, hey, I can make a lot of money and still be in the wellness industry, and I don't have to sacrifice my own health and well-being for the sake of trying to help others. And that's what I just love having this conversation about money.
Wow. All right. I'm sorry that you went through that, but at the same time, I'm so glad that people like you exist in our industry because most of us, not everyone here, certainly not everyone here, but most of us, I find when I do these interviews, we're on the opposite end where like the health went first, right? There's no money to begin with, and then we're losing the health on top of it. Not everyone has that entrepreneurial drive, though. That's definitely a bit rarer. I always actually kind of say, half jokingly, but half not. I'm almost glad that the health issues happened for me so young because I'm not here to tell my story today by any means, but I was sick from like 5 to 20, right? So I was very young and sick. And it taught me early on to balance this stuff because my parents would tell you firsthand. It's like I've always kind of had that hustler mindset. If I never was sick, I would have been a lawyer. I always say this: lawyer, real estate, or on Wall Street, right? Just trying to do something that is chasing that next thing, for better or for worse. And the health issues have allowed me to do work that I'm truly passionate about, which is great. But also, it's told me that I need to balance this because if you lose the health, as you saw yourself, all the money in the world is worth nothing. If you can't get out of bed, where are you going? Right? You're going to order more stuff off Amazon. You're going to go on another vacation. It doesn't work like that when you don't have the function to go do these things. So there's a balance with this. And I love the emphasis on personal net worth. I think we're going to naturally get to that because my first question I wanted to ask you today regarding tips and stuff is, what do you see is happening mistake wise when people get into business? And to give you context, you already know our audience, but just to show you it hasn't changed. These are a lot of first time entrepreneurs who, they might not have ever ran a business in their life, and they're only running a health coaching or health practitioner business because they realize that that's the only way that they can really do this work. So what are mistakes that you see with people who are starting off for the first time?
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes that I see, and again, I've done many startups and I've been in the business world for 25 years. And so I've been through it myself many times. And now I work with hundreds and even thousands of people at this point that are newer entrepreneurs. It's to understand that there's a difference between what our profession is and business. And so in specifically here in the context of health, we learn how to become a health coach. And so we go through your programs and we get certified and we become really great health coaches. It can be a doctor, it can be an RN, it can be an FDN, whatever it is. But that's just the knowledge of health and wellness and to become a coach, what it takes to coach in the health industry. So that's just all the skill development, the knowledge and skill development to be able to do our thing. Business is separate. So the biggest mistake is not understanding that we have to, and that's what you guys do, is teach that we have to learn the skill of business in addition to the skill of being whatever we are as a profession. And knowing that business is universal, that to be a business person, I can be a health coach and I can work for somebody else. Or I can be a health coach and I can work for myself. If I work for somebody else, all I really have to do is focus on being the best health coach in the world. If I'm going to be in business, an entrepreneur, I have to learn how to build a business where I live inside that business as the best health coach in the world. So it just goes to saying we have to learn business in addition to learning this skill. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize. The second piece to that is that business is about money. It's about this thing called profitability. And I love, like, you, it's called the health detective, and going in with getting functional labs and understanding the blood work and how to read the labs and how to make, how to diagnose based on what the blood work and the different labs say. Because when we just are trying to go on symptoms, it's very hard to ascertain what are the root cause problems that are causing these symptoms. And that's like what functional medicine is. Well, there's something called functional money, which is very much the same, is that there's these symptoms of not having enough money, but diagnostically, our money will tell us what our business problems are. So what that means is that we need to be functional detectives with our money, just like we are functional detectives with our health. And that to get into being an entrepreneur in business, we have to want to learn the money piece and want to think money's a good thing. We have to learn to like sales and think that sales isn't a bad word, and want to develop this relationship with our money and our business alongside as our profession is to coach people and to help make an impact of other people's lives. And the better we are at business and money, the more people we can help.
So fundamentally, I don't want to oversimplify it, but fundamentally, you're saying that one of the issues is this isn't necessarily being looked at as a skill to be acquired by these health coaches. So they're not like actually sitting and learning anything about it. It's just, if anything, it's almost worse because it's looked at as something, like you said, scary, like sales or this. So not only are you not learning about it, you're almost fearful of it consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, and there's like three things in business that you really have to get good at. So once we decide to take our health coaching profession and all that we've learned, our knowledge and skills of health and coaching, once we decide we want to do it for ourselves and we want to become an entrepreneur in business, there's 12 parts of business, these universal pieces, like you said at the beginning. Like, they're business is business and it's universal, meaning if you're an attorney and have a business and I'm a health coach and have a business, fundamentally we have the same businesses. Specifically, you're in the business of law and I'm in the business of health coaching. But outside of that, like three skills, like three things, like don't get into entrepreneurship if one, you have to learn marketing. So that's just part of it. Marketing is, for me, I've been in business for 25 years and marketing is not getting easier. I mean, it's getting more complicated, but it's fun. It's the challenge of marketing. And marketing just means how people are finding us to know that we have a shingle where we can help them. So it's where we put out our shingle and how we attract new clients. The second one is sales, like especially with most health coaches, we have one-on-one conversations, and we have to learn how to sell our product or our service or combination of both, and getting comfortable with sales. And again, the mindset piece is if we think sales is dirty, we're probably not going to be good at sales. So it's working on that mindset to say like, hey, I love sales. I love talking to people about how I can help them and why I can help them better than somebody else can help them, and getting comfortable there. And then the third thing is we have to get good with the money. We have to know what revenue is. We have to know how much it costs to run our business and our burn rate. And we have to know what profitability is. And all these, and marketing's changing all the time, but we're always marketing. But sales and money, once you really learn the skills of these two pieces, that's it. Like you learn it once and you can use it forever. And it's just knowing that, like you said, fundamentally, there's just these parts of business that we have to accept as they're things that we want to do and want to get good at as we continue to do our work to be better health coaches.
I love that you mentioned the money side as the third step, because I think almost anyone that I would talk to in the health coaching world, if I asked them what some, primary steps of business might be or primary things they need to learn, I think they actually would say marketing and sales, regardless whether or not they're doing it's a different story. But they would say that. But the number side, I actually don't think as many would answer that. And the only reason I even would is because I used to watch Shark Tank. And I loved watching that, especially in my early 20s when I was starting off on the entrepreneurial journey, because I thought I could watch TV and basically get educated. There's no way I'm not going to pick something up from these people. And one of the things that I picked up that still rings so true in my head, and it's just I can picture Kevin O'Leary saying it, who's obviously an imperfect human being. I get that, but he's a good business person. And he said to the person that was pitching, he's asking these questions, and it's not like he was trying to stump the person. He was really just asking genuine questions about the business, and they couldn't answer anything. He's like, how on earth do you want me to invest when you can't even tell me your numbers? You don't know how much profit there is. You don't know how much this costs. He's like, and you want me to invest in this? I can't even figure out if this is a good business. And neither can you, because you don't know. So it's really interesting because, guys, whether you're just shooting to replace your full-time job as a health coach or you're shooting for the big shots, there's some seven-figure FTNs out there. You gotta know this stuff. You have to know when I sell an online course, how much did it cost to get that person to actually buy it? And sometimes it's a little disappointing when you realize you spent more to get the person to buy something than the product actually costs. But I love that you emphasize that. And so with what you teach now, what is it that you can offer people like our health coaches? Because again, I don't want to say the words. I feel like I love to hear it from the person who creates this stuff, because your program has been a hit. We've gotten great reviews from the people that have gone through your stuff in our graduate group. So for those listening that might be unfamiliar with what you offer now, what have you created to help solve some of these problems and roadblocks that coaches are running into?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the money piece, is that I mean, I do teach business, but I focus on the money. And I focus on the money because your money is the lifeblood of your business. That if you're not making enough money or if you're not keeping enough money, you can't stay in business. And we invest so much into ourselves and we invest so much to get our business started that it's a lot. What I see this mistake that new entrepreneurs make is they just think like, oh my gosh, I just want to help people and I want to make impact and my heart's in it as though that's enough. And it's like we have to maintain that. That's that piece, but it's also understanding that you have to know your numbers. You have to get really numbers focused. And the sooner you can do this and really adopt this know your numbers of what numbers do I need to know when it comes to starting and growing my business, it's so great because when you learn the numbers from the beginning, the numbers are rather small. So as your business grows, those same fundamental numbers grow with you, but you're not getting later on and have a whole messed up business where you might be making a lot of top line, but you're just not getting ahead. The business isn't growing. And I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs, and specifically in the health coaching industry, where they're investing more money and they're taking more time and they're doing all the things, but they're not paying themselves. And they just keep waiting for some future date where, okay, maybe when the business makes this amount of money, I'll be able to pay myself. And it's a bad habit. Like you want to get in the habit of paying yourself right away. And I don't care if you're paying yourself $100 a month because you're bringing in 1,000, but it's starting that habit of knowing like I'm going to start the habit of paying myself, and then as my revenue grows, the amount of money I can pay myself, the money left over is going to grow with that. But again, you can't do that if you don't know fundamentally how the money operates and how to manage your expenses, how to target your income, and again, like what type of profit margin you want to keep as that baseline as you grow. So it's just my message is don't be afraid of the money. If you're going to get into this, learn to love the money piece.
So one of the things that we do, and guys, I'm always, if it's your first time listening, I'm always like very open about what we do behind the scenes. So one of the things that we send our guests is we say, what are some of the top takeaways that you'd like the audience to know? And I think when you realize that they're saying it to us, you realize how genuine it is, right? It's not like they're just saying it on the live with you. They're saying this to us. And Krisstina, I thought this was so cool. It seems simple, but I'm getting somewhere with this. Your first thing, the number one takeaway that you wanted was creating wealth can be easy if you have the right mindset and system. And while the words there are simple, what I find interesting, just because I know our audience so well, they are very similar to the rest of the world. That is almost it's almost triggering for a fraction of the population, right? To hear that get wealth is easy to build. All they've seen for all their lives is their parents not be able to have a proper retirement. They're feeling, stressed out because of the things that the media shares about the economy. And then, of course, there's people legitimately living below the poverty line that exists everywhere. So for so many people, that can be triggering. Now, I have a slightly different opinion, just slightly. And that's mostly because I was lucky enough to get into personal development at 18. And I started reading, all these self-help books. And some of it's just math. Now, if we're talking wealth that goes as extreme as, being worth $1 billion by the time you retire, yeah, there are some exceptional sets of skills that are involved with that, possibly even some luck, just who you're connected to, IQ, schools that you went to, all that stuff. I get that. But I have been thoroughly convinced that, especially in America, there is almost there's almost no situation where you can't retire wealthy enough to live off the stuff that you have saved and invested for the rest of your life. Is everyone living the same way? No, I'm not saying that either, but I do believe that. And some people, especially in my generation, they think that's not a possibility. They think retiring is not a thing. They're never going to do it. And certainly they won't be able to do it comfortably. So why is it that you believe creating wealth can be easy just by simply having the right mindset and the system? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you said it, is that it's math. And the reason why it's available to everyone is because it's math, and math is science, and it works. And so, but you have to follow the math principles. If you betray these very simple math principles, you will never be wealthy. But we're not taught these very first principles of math with money. And so people go their entire lives without knowing this. And because they don't know it, they're just stuck in the grind like everybody else. But it's actually very simple, but we don't know that. We're just kind of caught up in, I need to hustle more and try to make more. And we always think it's an earning problem, but
Hmm.
our wealth is not an earning problem. Our wealth is a spending problem. And that's what's not taught. And it's a different way to kind of think through the lens of money. And what I like to teach is that there are three legs of money, like a three-legged stool. If you want to have a stool to be secure, it needs at least three legs. And you can maybe go 4 or 5 or 10 legs, I don't know, but you need at least three legs. And so there's these three legs of money, and then there's these three categories of money. So I'll go through both of
Sure.
these very quickly. But the first, when it comes to money, just in general, and how our money mindset overall is going to affect our business, is going to affect our household, and it's going to affect our overall financial situation. So we really have to look at our money mindset. And we've heard it a million times, but it's doing the work to really know that money is abundant and money is available to all of us. And it's not complicated, but we have to have the mindset of wanting to clear up any old mindsets that we have been programmed and hold from our upbringing. And we've heard them all before, but we all have these money limitations, these limiting beliefs that are deeply embedded into our subconscious mind. And so part of the work when it comes to personal development and professional personal development is this money mindset piece, because I think it's just such a ceiling on what keeps people stuck and afraid of money. So that's the first piece, is really looking to break mindsets. And the thing with mindset is, once you do some very simple work, like
Mhm.
just all you have to do is just spend some time and think, like, what did my parents say about money? What do I say to my own kids about money? And you could just spend some time and write those down and come up with your own limiting beliefs pretty quickly, and then just rewrite them and be done with it. The second leg of money is what I call your relationship with money. In your relationship with money, and that's where I wrote the book Falling for Money, was all about this relationship that I want you to fall in love with your money in a healthy way, like a healthy love, and to love it in a way that you want to count it, you want to spend time with it, you want to understand it, you want to become partners with your money, you want to get over any type of weird feeling that comes into, when you think or talk about money.
Mhm.
And that's developing just this really good relationship. And when you are partners with your money, the two of you can do anything, but we abdicate our money. We stick our head in the sand. We procrastinate it. We ignore it. We avoid it because we're afraid, and that we're afraid usually because of those mindset pieces. So we have to develop this relationship with money to want to spend time with it. When you want to spend time with your money and you do spend time with it, it's amazing as how quickly financial situations will turn around. And the third part is your skill with money. Like I said, this is a very simple math piece, and I call it middle school math. There's nothing about money, like you said, if we want to get to the billionaire status, yeah. But for the rest of us, no, we can do middle school math when it comes to money and can put that math to work to be able to become financially free. So those are the three parts of the stool. I'll share real quickly and then, just ask into it.
Sure.
But these three categories of money that's really important to understand is that these three get conflated, and this makes money confusing. And so we can separate them. They work independently, like in functional medicine, we have our brain, our heart, and let's say our gut, and they're very, very independent systems, but they work systematically as a whole. And if you treat one without treating the other, it's probably not going to work,
Mhm.
which is the difference between conventional medicine and functional medicine, is getting to the root, knowing that all these systems affect one another. So money is very much the same. There's these three main money systems, and they're very independent, but they're very synergistic. And so one affects the other, but you look at them independently and then you work with them collectively. So the first one is money in our business. And so in entrepreneurs, I've already talked about that. We have to get very clear and understand how money operates in a business, what is revenue, what is cost of sales, what are expenses, what are burn rates, what are run rates, what are profitability. There aren't a lot of money numbers to know, but we have to run a profit and loss. We have to know what a balance sheet is. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to have QuickBooks and you need to run your money. I mean, that's just part of the job of being an entrepreneur, plain and simple. But then what happens is that you take the profitability from your business, and as business owners, our job as an owner of a business is to grow profit. That's our job as an owner of the business. The business provides the service. We own the business. We may be an employee or practitioner in our business, but as the owner of the business, our fundamental job is to create profitability. And the healthier the business is, like the healthier our bodies are, we know the business is healthier based on the profit.
Mhm.
So that we determine the health of the business based on the profitability. And if it's not healthy, we don't have profit. And so we need to go do our diagnostics to figure out why it's not healthy and get it to health. But what we do then, we're not going to get rich out of our business as small business entrepreneurs. What we do is we take a healthy amount of profit, and let's just say we pay ourselves $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. Now we pay ourselves money and we move that $10,000 from our business and we move it to our household. So, like what I said before, what we have is not an earning problem. What most of us have is a spending problem. So, yes, first figure out how to make $10,000 a month. Then that needs to be the first goal in your business, $10,000 of profit. Once you hit $10,000 of profit, though, you move that money to your household. And the spending problem is that it's called Parkinson's law of money. And the reason why this country's broke, and there's only 8.6% of all Americans are actually net worth millionaires, less than 10%, regardless of income, is because the more money we pay ourselves, it's called lifestyle creep, the more expensive our life gets. And so then we go work harder in business, we make more money, our life gets more expensive, and that just becomes a cycle, and that's called the treadmill. But Parkinson's law of money says expenses will always rise to match income. And it happens so insidiously and invisibly, we don't even know it's happening. But the only way to build real wealth and financial freedom is in what's called profit. And so the profit in your household means you have to manage your money in your household. And if you love your money and you learned this relationship piece and manage it, you have to create a surplus. You have to spend less than you make. And by spending less than you make and managing your money to make sure that's consistent, you get rich and build wealth by the third bucket, which is investing. And you have to invest a portion of your take home income into assets, into accumulating assets and building those. And it's the assets on that right side, that third bucket, that gets you out of the hustle over time. But that's the thing, is that we have to watch our money and make profit. We have to watch our money in our household and create that profit, which is to pay ourselves first. And then we take amount of that and we put it over time in assets. And when you're doing all three buckets of this money, just kind of synergistically and very simply, it's like going back to a metaphor with health, is that if I go lift heavy weights every single day, assuming I'm sleeping well and my diet's a good diet, but if I go lift heavy weights, I don't have to worry about my muscle growing. My muscle is going to grow. It's universal intelligence.
Yeah.
Our money has this universal intelligence that we don't have to worry about wealth creation as long as we lift those heavy weights of money, which is saving a portion of what we make and putting it somewhere to compound and grow. And that's called the muscle of money, is our assets. And we need a lot of healthy muscle to be able to age well. And that's what retirement is. And so it's just knowing that when we can fix our money mindset, when we can develop this really healthy relationship with money, and we just gain some basic fundamental skills of how to manage it and what to do with it, we don't have to worry about money. Money automatically starts working for us and creates the financial security, the financial well-being, the financial safety, and ultimately the financial freedom we all want.
I love this, Krisstina. I know that you used an example of $10,000 a month. And by the way, guys, we have plenty of practitioners that hit that. But let's say, hypothetically, you're not a practitioner that hits that. I want to go back to the math side for a second, because I think this is where it becomes a really uncomfortable conversation for people. And I'm not going there to try to poke people. I'm going there because you need to have those conversations sometimes. I got into the Dave Ramsey stuff like in my early 20s. I've read a bunch of people, right? Even like Profit First by the Mike guy. I forget what his last name is. But, I've gotten into these different philosophies and theories. I'm not perfect at any of them, but, I look into them. And when you break down the math of, regardless of whether or not someone loves or hates the Dave Ramsey guy, when you look into what $100, $200 a month put aside does from age 20 something to 60 something, that alone is almost, at least right now, unless something crazy happens with our economy, which anything can always happen in any country, I get that. But as of right now, if you just go off the stats, if you did that for about 40 years straight and you didn't panic, and you didn't take stuff out, and you didn't make irrational decisions, you would retire a net worth millionaire, assuming that you're not accumulating a bunch of other consumer debt. And I think there is something almost painful about that math, because all of us, and I have lived off 20,000 a year and I've lived off over six figures a year, right? So I've been on both sides of this. When you see that math, it's such a slap in the face to some degree that I think most people don't even want to look at it, because they're like, all I had to do was take away this little bit and put it away. When you're talking about the numbers that you're talking about, $10,000 a month, which is very realistic for our practitioners, you start putting away $500 a month, $1,000 a month into some of this stuff. Guys, if you break down how big you can retire and how well you can retire, it's insane. It's actually insane. And yet, we don't do it. And I like that you brought up the Parkinson's law thing, because I've experienced this. And this is just my always being transparent on the show. There was a time where, and this is while reading the books, Krisstina, so I deserve a virtual slap across the face for this one, because I was already reading the dang stuff that told me not to be stupid. And I was making like $30K a year. And I finally got hooked up with my speaking gigs that I wanted to. I made it all happen after 5 years. And basically my income like tripled in 1 year. And I had the exact same problems at the end of that year as I did the year before. And thank God I had read the stuff to at least know how to fix it once it happened. But I could not believe that I sat there as a human being that likes to believe I'm intelligent enough. I like to believe I'm responsible enough. I'm reading things that most people don't even read. And yet I still fell into the same trap. And I'm trying to convince myself and rationalize why $100,000 was not enough this year or that year, I should say, when $33,000 was more than enough the year before. That's kind of crazy. So I think the mindset, you brought that up as the number one thing. I think or the first thing I should say, but I do think the mindset's probably the number one thing. Do you talk about for people, like, how the heck do you get over that? Because I think the mindset's the same reason that we're scared to look at the math. I think the mindset is the reason we don't do this stuff and we experience the effects of the Parkinson's law. Like, how do we even start fixing the mindset?
Yeah, well, part of fixing the mindset is really just uncovering what the mindset is. But I mean, the mindset for a lot of those where they tell themselves a story, I'm not good at math. And when you think money is math and I'm not good at math, and this is a subconscious belief, then again, it's like, hey, I just have to go be a great health coach and I'll be fine financially. And it just, money doesn't work that way. So part of the mindset is like, hey, I'm not good at math, it's I can learn the math to be good at money because it's middle school math. But it's just mindset, like the mindset can be any number of things. It can be um, I don't know, in the health industry, you can't make money and help people at the same time. That might be
Yeah.
a mindset that's really built in. I know that's a big one in a lot of health profession and kind of in the spiritual context. You can't be spiritual and make money at the same time. So that it can be money is math. I'm not good at math. I'll let somebody else worry about money. I just want to go out and help people. That can be a really limiting mindset. It can be rich people are greedy. Money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, there's all of those, but usually our mindsets come from our parents. So if we just take the time to think what we heard as a child, or even what we saw or felt, what happens too in the mindset piece is that as children, if money wasn't a safe topic, our system is built on safety. And so it tries to avoid anything that makes it feel unsafe. And so if money was an unsafe topic in the house, like in my household, there were knockdown, drag outs, loud screaming matches based on money. Money was not a safe topic. So a big portion of my life, it's like, I just want to go out and make a bunch of money, but I wanted somebody else to manage it and do all the things. And that ultimately didn't work out because it was a safety issue. So again, lots of mindset stuff wrapped in there. But the point that you make is the simple truth that is just the message I want to put out is that the fundamental rule of money is you have to spend less than you make if you ever want to have financial security to begin with and ultimately financial freedom to kind of end with. But just start with the financial security. And that is the number one rule in business. You have to spend less money than you make in your business if you're ever going to pay yourself, because that's what's called profit. That's what's left over after all the expenses. So the business has to spend less money than it makes if it's ever going to have profitability. That's how money is. That's how business works. And that's why you have to know what profit is. In your household, like I said, you have to spend less than you make. The number one financial skill to develop is just that, is I boil it down to why do we not spend less than we make? One is because we don't know that that's the wealth rule, that if you're going to gain wealth and, like I said, financial security, the only way to create savings accounts and have cash sitting by is to spend less than you make. The only way to have asset accounts and have that portfolio is to spend less than you make. So that's the number one thing. And when you start out making 30,000 a year, maybe you spend $27,000 a year and do the difference. When you bump up to $60,000 a year, you spend less than 60. Once you make 150, you spend less than that. But you always have that differential of spending less than you make. That's what you do from day one. And if day one is your age 35 or 40, on that day is the day that you start spending less than you make and you figure out how to do it. And you go back and you figure out where all of your money's being spent, you look at it all and you rearrange it. And there's no other way around it. Like that's just it's like just the first principle of money. It's just like in health that you can't eat sugar and eat shitty food all day long every single day and think you're going to be well on the other side of it.
Mhm.
Too bad, so sad. I wish I could, but my body intelligence doesn't work that way. There is an intelligence. You have to follow that. You have to give the body the nutrients it needs. You need to give the body the clean water it needs. You need to give the body the sleep that it needs. You need to give the body the movement it needs. You need to give the body the living that you have to do that if you're going to have health and wellness on the other side.
Mhm.
And money's the same way. If you're going to have health, if you're going to have healthy money on the other side, that which is called wealth, you have to spend less than you make. You have to manage your money. You have to have this good relationship with it. These are all the raw ingredients that go into the wealth that is just the byproduct or the result. So that's that thing. And so the financial skill kind of underneath all of that is the skill of not needing to impress your neighbors, Because what causes that income or that expense creep going up as our money goes up is as we make more money, the size of our house goes up. As we make more money, the type of our cars change. As we make more money, our vacations change. And our lifestyle just goes up to match our income. And a lot of that is because we're trying to impress people. We want to look good to everybody else. We want to say, hey, I'm a successful, look at me. And it's that type of just built in culturally and getting into debt and these other things that are causing us, which are the eating bad food, eating the sugar of money. And so again, but it's not complicated. So it's not a lack of, it's a lack of just money fundamental, like just what I call this financial competency that's not taught in school, that we need to learn this ourselves, like you did reading Mike McCowitz's book, which is
Yes.
Profit First, and I recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Dave Ramsey's a good starting place. If you have debt, like he's a good place to. But they're all teaching these financial principles. But if you don't learn those, again, you're just going to be at the whim and being on this hamster wheel forever. And just to know that financial security and wealth creation is a behavior, mindset and behavior. And we have to fix the mindset, but then our behaviors have to be that we spend less than we make and we manage our money appropriately to make sure that's the case so that we can have this wealth on the other side.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about Dave is like, he's tough love with it. And people will call in that have like, $200,000 in debt. I'm not making fun of the debt, by the way. I've had plenty of debt in my life. I'm more laughing about how he approaches it because they'll call in and they're just starting his plan, right? And for those who don't know the Dave Ramsey plan, I'm not going to go through all the steps, but it's like save $1,000 as a very baby emergency fund, then pay off all the debt, then get into a major emergency fund. And you could argue that all you want. It's not the point. The point is people will call in arguing about the emergency fund. He's like, how much do you have right now? And they're like, well, we don't have anything. We're just doing it for the first time. He's like, okay, so why don't you try my plan? Because your behaviors obviously aren't working and have gotten you to this place. Why don't you try it this way for a little bit? And so to your point, because Robert Kiyosaki, his stuff's great as well. It's like, I think maybe that's a trap I fell into is I was learning all this stuff. And at the time, my money was so small, especially when I first started learning it, I might've been making 15K a year. I was like 18. Right. And I almost don't know if I even registered, like I wasn't really doing anything with it, or even if I did save 10%, it quite literally was almost $100 a month. That's what it ended up being. So it felt so small that maybe I just didn't fully embrace the principles, but I ended up falling into that trap of learning all this stuff, all these different philosophies, but I'm not actually sticking to one of them. And I'm certainly not sticking at it at a higher level. So a lot of these things actually work really well if you just do them long term. And again, it's so simple on paper, and yet a lot of people don't do this. I think I loved your analogies that you've brought back to health, not only because it's relatable to the audience, clearly it is, but I think they're accurate, especially like the sugar thing that you were talking about. It connected something in my mind where I'm like, this is almost identical, because when we eat poorly, you don't really get sick overnight. Most of us get sick over many, many years. And then when you finally get it, it's like, bam, punch in the face, holy cow. I think the money thing's similar where, at least in my experience, you can get away with doing the wrong thing for a little bit, or throwing something on a credit card, or this loan, that loan. And then all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, whoa, I need to do something here. So with your Wise Money Curbs program, I wanted to talk about that because that's what we're going to recommend on this show today. I'd love to know what people can expect if they are looking to kind of transform their business and personal wealth if they were to go through a program like this. So can we kind of break down the outline of it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. We do everything we're just talked about is that we start with mindset and clear all that up. And like I said, everything starts with mindset. And if we have a mindset that money's bad in some way or another, we're not going to do the work to be able to change our financial situation. So we do the mindset cleanup to get to a place very quickly of this belief like, hey, just like we can correct our health, like we can reverse type 2 diabetes. Like hopefully we don't get there in the first place. But a lot of people like pre-diabetes with our health coaches is a health coach is like, hey, you have pre-diabetes. The labs are telling us this. And I'm going to teach you exactly what to do, that if you do this, we can reverse it. So that's what I do with my Curbs program is that we look at all of the money. we give it a diagnostic, we look at how we're doing it, we put our money on it, kind of a health category, like if you will, like, are we pre-diabetes, are we diabetes, or, how are we doing overall? But it just starts with this mindset and this diagnostic, and then it's learning these financial principles that you've studied and I've studied, that we have to learn and apply to our life if we're ever going to get out of the rat race. And again, only I put people on the millionaire track. Like I said, 8.6% of Americans are millionaires, net worth millionaires. And I want everybody to be a millionaire or to be on that track. And it's, once you get on the track, you don't get off of it, because you learn what it is, and you start applying these things. And once you start applying these things and you see your money grow, all this financial anxiety just starts falling off. And like, hey, what I'm doing is working. Again, it's like when you start feeling good after you cut the sugar and you cut the processed foods, and you're sleeping more and all the things. It's like, whoa, I'm just starting to feel better, and I'm not so anxious, and wow, the scale is showing these things are working. So that's what we do over 12 weeks, is we break down money, we develop the mindset, we work on this relationship, and you just get very clear on where all of your money is, where it's going, how much money is enough, how much money do we need to save, how much money do we need to invest, how much money, how do we pay off our debt, and how do we just get and align with our money, that we work with our money as partners towards these financial freedom numbers, that, like you said at the very beginning, this is available to everyone. There's not one of us that's listening right now that cannot become financially free and create that financial security that we're looking for in our lives, in our houses, and overall in our families, that where our families really have so much abundance of not just money, but ultimately what money is, time and choice, and having that ability to have the time and the choices to be able to live our life, that, the life that we want.
Yeah. And yeah, I hope it's encouraging for people, because again, I don't want to ever be too blunt or insulting. It's hopefully to wake people up in the same way I've had to be woken up many times, by the way. If you're listening to this and can comprehend it, because the stats are pretty clear, you need you want about an 80 IQ minimum to earn real wealth. That is like the bare minimum. But if you're able to comprehend this conversation, you're good to go. And then in addition, you need some freedom in your country. If you live in the middle of nowhere and have no access to large amounts of people to sell things to, or any currency, of course you can't make money by definition. But again, if you're listening to this, that means you have access to the internet. And there are children that are making more money than myself right now based on their use of the internet. Now, hopefully they're managing their money well as well. But it's kind of crazy how that can happen. So, it's not to piss anyone off. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, there's really no excuse. There's going to be different levels for everyone that we all end up at. That's fine. But, where we can all share our level is just being comfortable and losing that stress. That's something that I think that was the thing that really set me over, is I thought I was someone that was more comfortable, like almost like Grant Cardone crazy style, like taking on massive amounts of debt to do stuff. I said, that's not me. I relate more to the Dave Ramsey in the sense of I still have this entrepreneurial spirit, right? That guy's as entrepreneurial as you can be. He's one of the biggest names in the country, but we're not going to have all this weight of all this crippling debt on our shoulders every time we go to bed. I can't sleep like that. I'll wake up with it. It's terrible. So what are some of, because normally I would ask like client testimonials from health programs. So I'd like to finish today with asking about this. What are some of the transformational stories that you've heard about, to the degree that you're able to share, I guess, of people going through this program? Maybe they're at the end of the rope with money. They're like, what the heck's going on? Everything's a mess. And then they go through the Curbs program and come out with a hopefully better outcome. I'd love to hear like one or two awesome stories of transformation that's happened as a result of them working with you guys.
Yeah, I'll tell a couple. So how my program works is 12 weeks, but we go through as a group, and I'm there with you. Like, I am teaching you everything that you need to know to be able to change your financial situation towards complete abundance. And over this 12 weeks, just all the anxiety just disappears, because you have clarity, you have this new understanding and knowledge of how money works, and you're putting these principles to work over the 12 weeks. So I just had a graduating class a few weeks ago. So I'll tell a couple stories that came out of this class. One was from a woman named Lori, and Lori just this is a mindset piece, and What I do after the course is complete, then I do a wrap up call with all of the students and just ask basically this thing. And she said, Krisstina, number one, she's an artist, she's a painter, and she's been making, a few $1,000s a month, and she's making money at her art. But she just said, one, as an artist, I had this mindset I couldn't make money and art at the same time. And she said that was just really built in. And by the end of the program, she had doubled her money. But she said the reason why I was able to double my money is because what I realized, this is a crazy story. It's the first time I've told it actually. She said, my parents, my mother died, and as children, were pretty convinced that my dad poisoned my money for the life insurance money, poisoned my
Oh, gee.
mother for the life insurance money. And she said, I've lived this. I'm 44. I've lived this with this my whole life. I've ignored it, not thought about it. And she said, doing this work, when I wrote my story, when I wrote my letter to money is one of these exercises, and then I wrote it again at the end of the program. She said, what I realized is I'd been blaming money for the death of my mother my entire life. And I just didn't want anything to do with it. I thought it killed my mother one way or another, like subconsciously. And letting that go, I realized like, no, money had nothing to do with this. This was my father and these different things. And so I was just able to let that go. And once that lifted, money just became easy for me. Like, I'm so excited about this. And now I'm already making more. I'm charging more for my paintings. I set up this new relationship and I raised my prices, and I've already doubled my money.
Nice.
But just that one little mindset piece. But at 44, she had no idea that this money mindset belief is what's kept her trapped and barely paying her bills. And so that was one. Another story is Jackie and James Laughlin. I really love it when couples go through the work together. But Jackie and James, I probably shouldn't have said their last name, although they're fine with it. They said use their name whenever. But anyway, Jackie and James, and they were earning combined, they were earning about $375,000 a year.
Mhm.
And she was a life coach, and he was an entrepreneur, in just like a tech business. And so they're making 350 a year, and they came into Curbs, and but we think, well, if I was making 350 a year, I wouldn't have any money problems, right?
Yep.
But they're just like, they joined the program because they said, what, I mean, we are month to month, we're stressed out, we have a great marriage, but we're fighting about money all the time. We cannot get ahead. We do not know what's wrong. And then when they went through the work, they realized like, we're spending, not only are we spending every dollar we're making, we're spending more because they're lifestyle creep, but they had no idea because they were making so much money, they were spending it and not keeping track of it. And they were overspending and they weren't investing. And they just, once they knew their numbers and learned their numbers, they just moved everything. And they switched things around, and they went from zero net worth to $1.2 million net worth in that 12 weeks by just learning how to rearrange their money and manage it and get it organized where it wasn't going to out there to look this rich lifestyle, but they switched it around and they started moving their money towards assets and this different mindset, and they got all their debt paid off in the meantime. That, I mean, they called me and just said, we can't even say thank you enough because we would have been in that rat race for the next 20 years trying to
Mhm.
figure out what was going wrong. And now we're just so financially secure. We know exactly what to do. And we know we're going to be multi millionaires because we've got the framework for how to do that now.
I love both of those stories. That's very intense with the first one. So thank you for being willing to share that. I know it's not your story, but still, like that's just. I think I think variations of that, maybe not as extreme, maybe not even 70% as extreme, but variations of that are actually lingering in people's heads, whether it's a divorce, loss of, a parent or something, and it's affecting them for their whole lives and they don't realize it. I think I'm still uncovering things myself. Thank God not as an extreme, but I'm still uncovering things myself that I've allowed to dictate my actions or lack thereof in certain areas. And it's like, oh, it's fascinating and humbling when you come to those realizations. Each time for me, it's fascinating and humbling. I just keep going through the experience of like, oh, okay, we can do a little better here. So I saw a few of you scanned the QR code. That's awesome. And if you do check out the link in the comments, you can just click it. Obviously, you can't click it on the screen, but you can click it in the comments on YouTube or Facebook. That's where you can find out more about this program. I'm actually very interested in it myself. And my wife and I, Maddie, are always working on these things together together. So I will go through it at some point and let you guys know my findings and reviews. I always love doing that. Krisstina, I actually always usually ask on the show, what's the number one thing people would do for their health? In your case, I would ask, what's the number one thing people would do for their money? And so just to reiterate this, I believe you had said, you got to pay yourself first, right? You have to do that. If I may, then I want to finish up by asking, where can they start? Do you believe in a percentage-based thing? Is it just do something? Like, I think people like Frames works with this stuff. So is it a 5%, 10%? Where do you believe people should start in terms of how to pay themselves first?
Yeah, I'll answer that two ways. I mean,
Sure.
there's the ultimate way that I actually teach in my program, but that's determining with the end in mind. Like the universe loves clarity, and so when we have some health goals, when we start with health goals, we can do the dominoes before that will help us achieve those results. So ultimately, we want to know, like, how much money is enough, meaning like how much net worth do I need to be financially free? And then you can reverse engineer into that very easily. You just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I have zero net worth today, I want to have $1 million, I want to be a millionaire in 20 years from now, as an example. How much do I need to save and invest, assuming an 8 or 9%? And ChatGPT will tell you. So that's just doing some very simple work to come up with that. But in the meantime, what I teach is that I mean, that'll give you like an exact number and the universalist clarity. And when you have that, then it takes all the guesswork out of it. But before that, I say start with 10%. Like that's just because, again, it's just a starting place. Like I don't care even on the percentage. I just say do something, put something away. To your point, put in a compound calculator. If I invest $500 a month for 40 years, how much am I going to be worth? Put that in ChatGPT. You'll be astonished at compounding. So it's less about how much and where the number. Let me just say real quick, the number one question I get asked when it comes to kind of money in general, like when I'm on stages and different things, is, Krisstina, where should I invest my money? And it typically is coming from those that have never saved an extra dollar in their life, and they're trying to get the $1 million secret of where to invest.
Mm.
And the answer to that, it's not where you invest. The key to becoming this financial security on the way to financial freedom is consistency. It's investing $100 a month every single month for however period of time. And when you make more money, you go to $200 a month and $300 a month. But it's the consistency and longevity that's going to make you rich more than the amount. Yes. Or the investment itself. So to answer your question, anything to get started with, but I like to say at least come with 10% and rearrange all of your spending so that you can start to invest that 10% and just get in the habit and get in the habit and get in the habit. Then ultimately, I teach something called the 20-80-20, which is where you want to take 20% off the top. You live off of what's left over. That's, you pay 20% upfront. You live off what's left over, and 80% goes towards lifestyle expenses. The other 20% goes towards liquidity and cash and savings and that type of thing. And this 20-80-20 is really just what I call this guaranteed millionaire formula, that we create that again in the program so that like this formula is going to turn out a millionaire, and then you just turn into the habit. And the habit with money is just like when you get used to eating a healthy diet with clean food and all the things, and as part of your weekly that you work out a few times a week and you get your 10,000 steps in, and that becomes the habit. Our body responds with a healthy body. And then if we put good stuff in our minds and all the things, input equals the output. And the same thing with the money. The more we input into our money category, the more that money is going to give us back.
That is awesome. Krisstina, thank you so much for your time today. Just one quick thing. We already had a bunch of links, obviously. Can you just say verbally, where else would you like people to find you? Let's shout out the podcast again. Where can they get connected?
If you just want like little money tips, I just say there's two things. I think in the link below, there's a link to get on my calendar. And what I will do is I will spend 45 minutes talking about your money. We'll talk through this, and it's safe. It doesn't matter. You can be in the craziest, worst financial situation or a decent one anywhere. Like I've been wherever you are. I've had clients that are wherever you are. So just set up a conversation. And what that conversation does gets you over the fear of talking about money.
Mm.
So if nothing else, taking that step is going to change the trajectory, that you're not going to avoid this thing. You might be really scared. Talk to this Krisstina woman, all the feelings, but get over the feelings and do it anyway. So I just do that as a complimentary. I'll do a coaching session like you do as health coaches. You give coaching sessions to health. I do that in money. So that's a thing to do if you actually want to have a conversation. I love the conversation. I promise you'll get a lot of value, and we'll tackle whatever you want to tackle. Outside of that, I say that just go to my YouTube channel, because I'm doing little 15 to 30-minute just sound bites on just teaching very simple principles. And if you listen to those videos, you'll start to get these little nuggets, and these come out of 20 years of studying money and all the greats. Like what you're talking about is these different books and what I've applied in my life. And I just will complete by saying I've created financial freedom for myself. I teach what I've done. I have an eight-figure net worth, and it takes
Nice.
care of me. And it's a lovely place to be. I live in Park City, Utah. And I just share that with you because I've created it. I started in a trailer home. I've created with nothing.
Nice.
I've lost all my money more than once trying to figure all this out. So I just teach from this real heart place. I've been in the worst financial situations one can imagine. You probably, very few people can do better than me on how bad I was at money and how bad my financial situation was. So again, you don't be embarrassed, because I can probably out embarrass you if I told you my own stories. So that's just it. I just like to say that, to say, hey, I teach what I've done, and what I've done is available to everyone, because not good at math, not rocket science, started in a trailer home, made every single mistake, and I still wound up here, because you just put in the right inputs, you're going to get the right output.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. If you guys don't mind, just drop a thank you in the chat if you enjoyed this content today. If you do that, that also lets us know that you want this type of content in the future. Krisstina, I just appreciate the change of pace. I love talking health, but I also love talking